Hello peoples, today I'm going to be doing a ranking of the MCU. I want to try to keep this under 6 minutes because I've talked about these movies so much, and I am literally going to try to wrap up, well, I won't be including WandaVision in this video, but I really want to go through these fast because I have done this ranking many times, and with this as much content that we're getting from the Marvel movies, I just really, if this is just more of a reveal where this ranks with the rest of where WandaVision ranks with the rest of the MCU, so I'm going to go through this very fast for a ranking video. So number 24 is The Incredible Hulk. Never liked this movie. I just never liked it. I think it's a terrible movie. I think the Abomination just showing up at the end just gives something for Hulk to punch. The plot is a mess. Elizabeth Liv Taylor or whatever that actress name is, she's in a different movie. She's in a soap opera. And I can't take this movie seriously. I really can't. The CG is terrible, by the way. Coming in at number 23 is Iron Man 2. It's just way too overstuffed. I don't know what to take away from it. And it's just, all of it's well done. It's just too much. And I really hate to say this, but because it's all well done, it's just, too much at once thrown at you. Coming in at number 22 is Captain America, the First Avenger. I really like the first two acts of this movie, but the third act, I just kind of yawned my way through it because there's no connection to Red Skull and Captain America. Because Captain America completes his arc at the end of the second act, and then you're like, okay, so let's have this big battle between Red Skull and Captain America. But I didn't care by then because there's no tension between the characters. Because it's not like if Red Skull killed Bucky or something, I'd be on board. And it was something as easy as that to get you on board to dislike him. But the movie makes absolutely no attempt at doing that. So I completely check out by the third act. And I'm like, okay, so I watched the first two acts of a movie, it felt like. But yeah. Anyways, coming in at number 21 is Thor: The Dark World. I don't hate this movie. The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, and Captain America: The First Avengers are the only Marvel movies I really don't like. And I think Thor: The Dark World is okay. I think it does everything just too mediocre. Like, it's a mediocre plot. It's a mediocre villain. It's a mediocre character arc for Thor, and mediocre characters, mediocre jokes. Some of them land, some of them don't. So it just really does get lost in the mix. It never stands out in anything. Because there's movies that I think are technically worse than Thor: The Dark World, but they're better because they stand out in something. And so this movie never really found anything that really made it original. Coming in at number 20 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. A year ago, I would have had this easily in second to last place or last place. But it wasn't until my last viewing I really started to appreciate that it's just Marvel light. And me a year ago would have totally punched myself in the face if they ever heard me say that. But Ant-Man and the Wasp is just, it's fine. So yeah, the comedy is funny. It's just the too many villains, and it has some really cliche. I can't believe I'm saying this. Cliche Marvel problems. Problems you expect to see from a mediocre Marvel movie, and that's what Ant-Man and the Wasp is. Plus Michelle Pfeiffer doing this to Ghost at the end just makes me laugh a lot. Anyways, coming in at number 19 is Captain Marvel. This movie's okay. It is very forgettable, but it does shine in some moments. It's just when it shines, it's like, oh, this is some of the best MCU content I've ever seen. But when this movie gets dull, which it is for a lot of the movie, you're like, okay. it never sucks. It's never particularly bad. Well, sometimes it does get bad in the CGI. And there's some moments where I don't think Brie Larson is the best. I just don't think Brie Larson was written well. A lot of people say oh, Brie Larson sucks. I think Marvel got an Oscar-winning actress and they thought that that's all they had to do to really build her up. No, I don't think Captain Marvel was miscast. I just think she was terribly written. Coming in at number 18 is Iron Man 3. This is the black sheep of the MCU, like everyone says. And like Captain Marvel, when this movie gets good, it's some of the best MCU content you've ever seen. When this movie gets, it gets really crappy. But this movie is never particularly crappy for a long period of time. Especially, the only time it really does get really crappy is when it does that Mandarin twist or whatever. And you see, the Aldridge Killian or whatever. Because I remember being, 2013. I must have been about 7. 9, actually. And I remember I was like, I remember being so intimidated by the Mandarin in the trailers. And I was 9 years old, and then I was like, okay, when they did that reveal. Coming in at number 17 is Ant-Man. It's a fine movie. It really is. It's one of the most mediocre movies Marvel gets. It's just, the copy and paste villain from Iron Man 1. Coming in at number 16 is Spider-Man Far From Home. I never walked out more disappointed watching a Marvel movie. It's just because I thought this was going to be like top tier Marvel, because I thought the trailers were that good. It's just, the movie dwells on Tony Stark too much. And don't get me wrong, Tony Stark is like literally my childhood hero. Like, I watched him from age 4 till literally here I am, 16 years old, still having an Iron Man helmet in my room. So it's just, I respect the character so much, where with the Edith glasses, that plot device, and there's a lot of problems I have about this movie, but the action in here is some of the best Spider-Man action I've ever seen. The CG is some of the best CG I've ever seen, and it's a fine story as a whole. Coming in at number 15 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The plot in here is kind of a mess, but, it's fine for what it is. It has a strong emotional core at it. Like, it has the best ending shot in the whole MCU. Like, literally, Rocket shedding a tear for Yondu out of all characters. So it has the strongest ending shot in the whole MCU, and it has a lot of fun action, and it's a fun movie. Coming in at number 14 is Avengers: Age of Ultron. People call this the worst Avengers movie, so they think that it's a bad movie. It isn't. It's a really fun Marvel movie. I have lots of fun with this movie. The only thing I really have a problem with is how lighthearted Ultron was and kind of funny, and I didn't really appreciate that, because I was led to believe, he's going to be actually scary, but he wasn't. So, Ultron was a little bit of a disappointment, but I still really like the after effects that this sets up for the MCU. Yes, it does get a little overcrowded, but not as much as I think other people say it is. Coming in at number 13 is WandaVision. I really like this show. It's a fantastic show. Well, for a show, this is really, really good. Of course, like, these movies on up are like not some of my favorite movies. Like, the top 3 Marvel movies are my favorite movies. Some of my favorite movies, but all of these here on up are just really good. WandaVision is a fantastic television show, and it's some of the most original MCU content that we got. It's just, if this show stayed consistent from episode 5 and up, it'd probably be a lot higher than what it is now. But the last couple episodes were really good, but they went more of a Marvel direction than I would have preferred it to go. But Marvel direction isn't necessarily bad. I just wish it kind of stepped to its original roots a little bit more. But besides that, I did really enjoy WandaVision. Coming in at number 12 is Thor. I really, really enjoyed this movie. A lot of people don't, and I don't know why. People liked it in 2011, then all of a sudden it just kind of, people slowly turned against it. Coming in at number 11 is Black Panther. I love this movie. It's just, I get really distracted at the crappy CGI in the third act. Here I am, 2 days later, editing this video, and I did not include my number 10. I was tired when I was recording this, so that's why. But anyways, the number 10 I have is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is probably one of the best opening solo movies that there is in the MCU. The only other ones is Ant-Man, Captain America: The First Avenger, and Thor. All besides Captain America: The First Avenger, those are all decent, but Doctor Strange is a whole nother level to me when it comes to introductions for great superheroes. Benedict Cumberbatch is perfect as Doctor Strange. Could not ask for better casting. The action in here, even though looks visually kind of dull, has a lot of interesting stuff going on. And yeah. Coming in at number 9 is Spider-Man: Homecoming. This is probably the most fun theater experience. Well, one of the most fun theater experience I ever had. I'm never going to forget that scene where Michael Keaton opened the door. My jaw dropped to the floor. So yeah, like, it's a good intro movie to Spider-Man. It has great moments. It has a small scale but feels big at its emotional core. Coming in at number 8 is Avengers: Infinity War. There is some, if it wasn't for a lot of conveniences in the plot, this would be easily at number 1. But there is some conveniences in the plot, and it really does affect the movie's spot in the MCU. But all of these movies, like I said, like 10 on up, it's just fantastic. So don't think 8's a crappy spot for Infinity War, because I really respect all of these movies. So yeah, coming in at number 7 is Thor Ragnarok. Probably this is the most fun Marvel movie to watch with a group of people. It's extremely funny. It has a fun plot. It doesn't have too much emotion, but when you have this fun watching a movie, emotion doesn't necessarily matter when you're having this much fun, because this movie is just so fun. The action's great. I get chills still watching this action when you have Thor literally after he blasted the Hela with that big lightning bolt, and then he goes flying down in slow motion, and the music kicks in. I still get full body chills every time. Has great moments. It's fantastic. Direction wise by Taika Waititi, his style really adds a lot to it. Coming in at number 6 is Avengers Endgame. Every single act of this movie gets something perfect. The only thing that really has this movie a little bit lower for me is that I don't like the way they handle Thor's PTSD. I can't take a PTSD storyline seriously when in the very same storyline, they're making fat jokes about him. I can't take it seriously if they're making fat jokes about Thor, but yet he's supposed to have a very serious PTSD storyline. And it's fine if you disagree with me on that, but besides that, the movie's great. There's some CG I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't exactly like that we still got this kind of gray looking, muddy looking third act that we got. But besides that, Endgame is, of course, number 6, one of the best Marvel movies. Coming in at number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie is at Marvel at its best when it comes to balancing tones. This movie amazingly balances the tones between serious and comedic, because people call this... I'm not talking to you, Siri.
Okay.
Forgive Siri, just really bursting in like that. Okay, I'm making sure it didn't catch up on me. But Guardians of the Galaxy, it has its serious tones, and it has its funny tones, and it just, when it collides, it really works. It just, I never thought I'd get emotional by the line "We Are Groot," especially delivered by a talking tree, by Vin Diesel. So, yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy really works. James Gunn, like I said, really has a great emotional core at his movies, and like I said, balances comedies so well. Coming in at number 4 is Iron Man. People have this movie about 10 to 14 area, but I just have a lot of respect for it. Within the last year, I've probably watched this movie about 5 times, and my respect for it just gets higher. Yes, the third act there are better third acts in the MCU, but the third act still isn't bad. It's still, even though it's still the classic, oh, you're fighting the same version of yourself, but bigger. That's a little bit of a cliche, but for what this movie does and accomplishes, it's just out of this world. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is fantastic, and I really don't think I can say much more about this movie. Coming in at number 3 is The Avengers. I'm never going to forget watching this movie the first time. I know where I saw it, when I saw it, and what seat I was in, and I was 6 years old. And the thing about this movie is, each time I watch this movie, I get more out of it. And heck, when I was 6 years old, I would have said, oh, my favorite part of the movie is the part where Hulk takes Loki and slams him all over the place. But now my favorite scene in the movie is where Captain America and Iron Man are basically roasting each other right before Loki unleashes the Hulk. This movie has some great moral conflicts. I love how this movie actually has a proper TV aspect ratio. I know that's just a little detail, but I felt like I need to say it. But besides that, it's one of the best Marvel movies still, in my opinion. I know some people are kind of turning against this one as well, but anyways, I love The Avengers. And yeah, coming in at number 2 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. My number 2 and number 1 are probably the most serious movies in the MCU. And I'll get into my opinion on how the MCU, I think, should have evolved and how it missed an opportunity for me. But The Winter Soldier, what I love about this movie is that the action itself isn't oh, this is amazing action. What makes this action amazing is how there's no jokes in it. It's always super serious. Whenever the Winter Soldier showed up in this movie, I remember watching it the first time, I was petrified. I thought he was gonna kill someone else next. I remember, like, I was terrified of the Winter Soldier when I first saw this movie. And, like, I've always really, really loved this movie. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Captain America character. Like, I'm a fan of Captain America, but I'm not the biggest fan of him. I still like him, but he's not one of my favorites. And the fact that his movie is this high on my list says a lot. Like, the movie is just so well made by the Russo brothers. They bring in an extremely serious tone. Like, I don't need jokes thrown at me every 24/7. It remains really serious, and it's just almost like a classic spy movie at this point. Like, it's just so well handled and really captures the Captain America spirit, I think. And coming in at number 1, speaking of Captain America, is Captain America Civil War. It's my favorite Marvel movie. It sets up things subtly, doesn't throw too much at you. It is probably one of the most original plots there is to the Marvel movies. It has a lasting effect on the future of the MCU, but like I said, isn't overstuffed. And it's almost like, to me, it's like Age of Ultron 5.0. It's just that much better when it comes to the rest of the Marvel movies for me. This is like a solid 9.9, easily one of my favorite movies of all time. And Civil War, like, the hand-to-hand combat here is great. It doesn't have big explosions at the end. It's just a simple fight between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, with Bucky just kind of rolling around on the side. But it's a third, and what I really appreciate is when a movie gets its big bombastic stuff away in the first 2 acts, and the third act is very personal. Still action, but I take a third act more to heart when it's just people literally punching it out. And there are movies in here where it's much more than just punching it out, and it gets the most bombastic at the end. And I'm not saying that doesn't work. It's just I prefer a personal fight at the end over a big bombastic fight. And that's what Captain America Civil War really brought me. Like I said, it introduced Black Panther, Spider-Man, but it never felt overstuffed, which really works. It brought and gave a lot of stuff from the comics, and this is Civil War is one of the only comics I've ever read, and I remember being so prominently Team Iron Man and walking out of the movie so conflicted on each side. But yeah, Civil War is just a Marvel classic to me, and here I am saying saying that this ranking would be 6 minutes long, and here it is 16. So I want to wrap this up. So anyways, that's my ranking of the MCU. Wait, I need to tell you my problem about the Marvel movies. My biggest, what I was saying earlier, is with its tone, for example, Harry Potter, each movie just got slightly more serious. It started off light, and as it went on, by the 8th movie, it was just basically a wizard drama. But as the Marvel movies got on, I expected almost the same thing, because I expected it to evolve and get more serious because I was growing up with it. So at one point, like around the Infinity War times, is where I felt like I was older than the MCU, if that makes any sense. I am older than the MCU, but I feel like the MCU, like all the way up till Infinity War, I felt like I was growing with the MCU. But by the time we got into Infinity War, I was expecting a really serious, intense Thanos movie, but they still threw jokes at you. And don't get me, I still really like Infinity War, but I just think it was a big missed opportunity for Marvel to actually go more serious as they evolved. But of course, they had to make money, they had to bring the kids in. But that's just all I wanted to say about that. Don't get me wrong, I still love Infinity War, I still love Endgame, and I do actually... I know I did tell you guys my problems with each one, but I felt like I have to do that. But don't get me wrong. Like I said, I only dislike 3 of these movies. And the ones I would say I think are good is basically Ant-Man, which is 17. I like basically 17 of these movies. I think Iron Man 3, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Thor: The Dark World are just okay. But yeah, that's my ranking. Here I am, 14 minutes over the time I said I was going to go. So yeah, anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.